It's funny, when you put on your headphones and just hit play on your favorite song,
Yeah.
you really expect the music to just be music.
Oh, absolutely.
Like you're looking for a mood boost or a distraction, maybe just a soundtrack for your commute. You definitely don't think, I'm stepping right into the middle of a century-old war.
But you literally are. I mean, it's a literal war over the invisible architecture of sound.
Right.
For anyone who actually studies this stuff, it is easily the loudest, most contentious debate in modern acoustics.
Exactly. So today, you are about to dive into this massive unseen rift between two very specific musical frequencies, which are 440 hertz and 432 hertz.
Yes.
It's called the pitch divide. And our mission today is honestly pretty straightforward. We're going to completely untangle the acoustic physics from the esoteric fiction.
Which is so necessary, right? Because
Yeah.
if you spend any time on the internet at all, you have undoubtedly stumbled across this debate.
Oh, absolutely. Like you've probably seen the viral videos or read those wild theories about ancient healing frequencies.
Right.
Or, on the flip side, the claims about these massive corporate tuning conspiracies designed to somehow agitate your nervous system.
Yeah, the conspiracy theories are wild.
They really are. But today, we are respecting your time. We're stripping away all that internet noise to find out what actually happens to your brain and your endocrine system when you listen to these different pitches.
And I think the central paradox of this whole debate is really what makes it so compelling.
What do you mean?
Well, the internet myths surrounding 432 hertz, the cosmic math, the ancient origins, they're almost entirely false.
Right.
Like completely mathematically debunked. But the clinical data shows that your body actually does respond to it in a profoundly different way.
Wow.
Yeah, the historical lore is fake, but your physiological response to the frequency is very, very real.
That is so interesting. But I guess before we can even begin to understand why your body reacts differently to 432 hertz,
Yeah.
we kind of have to understand why people are fighting over this in the first place.
Exactly.
Like, how did we ever end up needing a standardized frequency for music? Because today, 440 hertz is the undisputed heavyweight champion of the modern world.
Oh, it's universally adopted.
Right. It's the default for Spotify, for Apple Music, digital audio software, orchestral harmonization. Like, it is literally everywhere.
Right, but it certainly wasn't always that way.
Okay.
There's this incredibly romantic idea online that there was some ancient global standard of perfect musical harmony that we somehow lost or corrupted.
But that's not true.
The historical reality is entirely different. Before the 1800s, pitch was strictly local.
Local, like per town.
Literally. In fact, it depended on the physical size of the biggest church organ in your town.
Which is just a wild concept. If you traveled from town to town, the very definition of a musical note just changed.
It completely changed.
Because the historical record shows this massive swing. From the year 1511 to 1899, pitches were just fluctuating wildly all across Europe.
It was all over the place.
You could be in a town like Halberstadt, Germany,
Mhm.
where the local organ was tuned way down to this deep, rumbling 377 hertz.
Right.
And then you take a carriage to Vienna, and suddenly the local orchestra is tuned up to a piercing, brilliant 458 hertz.
And that extreme variance created what music historians call the touring virtuoso problem.
The touring virtuoso problem. Paint that picture for us, because it sounds like an absolute nightmare for a traveling musician.
Oh, it was chaos because, as the Industrial Revolution hits and steam power is invented, musicians could suddenly tour globally much faster.
So they're hitting more cities in a shorter time.
Exactly. A virtuoso violinist could play in Berlin on Tuesday and Paris on Thursday.
Wow.
But these fluctuating localized pitches were causing literal orchestral carnage.
Wait, carnage?
Yes. It wasn't just that the music sounded a bit off. Musicians were snapping strings on stage.
Ah, oui, si.
They were cracking the wood of highly expensive, meticulously crafted cellos and violins.
Because of the tension.
Yeah, because they were constantly tightening and loosening the tension of the instrument to match whatever local town standard they had just arrived in. So out of sheer logistical necessity, we get to the 1939 London Conference.
Okay, 1939.
International delegates finally meet at BBC headquarters to agree on a unified global tuning standard.
Okay, I have to jump in here because this is exactly where the internet's favorite conspiracy theory is born.
Oh, the Nazi myth.
Yes. If you read the forums, people constantly claim, wait, didn't Joseph Goebbels and the Nazi regime invent the 440 hertz standard to make the masses aggressive and easier to control?
Yeah, it is arguably the most pervasive myth in acoustics today. And we need to definitively bust it right now using the actual historical timeline.
Let's do it.
Did Joseph Goebbels push for 440 hertz at that 1939 London conference?
Right, did he?
Yes, his delegation did, but he absolutely did not invent it.
Oh, well.
440 hertz was actually already a widely adopted standard in the United States and part of Germany for over 2 decades prior to that meeting.
Oh, wow. So it wasn't some sinister psychological weapon engineered in a lab to ruin our collective vibes?
Not at all. The real reason 440 hertz became the global standard is almost hilariously mundane.
Really?
Yeah, it ultimately came down to British audio engineers led by a man named Sir James Swinburne.
Okay.
The initial proposal on the table was actually 439 hertz.
439.
Yeah, but Swinburne and his engineering team rejected 439 simply because it's a prime number.
Wait, they rejected a global musical standard because of a math quirk?
Yep.
Why does a prime number even matter to an audio engineer?
You have to think about the technology of the 1930s. Generating a specific frequency electronically relied on mechanical tone wheels and basic dividing circuits.
Yeah.
So you take a high frequency and divide it down to create lower octaves. You cannot easily divide a prime number like 439 without leaving messy, infinite fractions of a hertz.
Oh, so it just doesn't divide cleanly.
Right, it was a technical headache, so the engineers just shrugged and rounded up.
You're kidding.
No, they literally bumped it from 439 to 440 hertz purely for clean, easy mathematical division.
It is so simple.
And it was later locked in by the International Organization for Standardization, the ISO, in 1955.
So if I'm understanding this right, 440 hertz wasn't a choice made by musicians or, like, psychologists. It was a choice made by tech guys because it made their equipment run smoother.
Exactly. It was a logistical engineering solution.
But if 440 hertz was just a convenient shortcut for engineers who didn't want to deal with messy fractions, how do we explain the modern obsession with 432 hertz?
Wait, where does that come from?
Yeah, why is it revered in the wellness space
Yeah.
as this organically warm, mathematically perfect frequency?
Well, the origin of that specific number starts with the legendary Italian composer Giuseppe Verdi.
Ah, Verdi's A.
Yes.
Because the modern myth online claims that Verdi demanded orchestras tuned to 432 hertz because he unlocked the golden ratio, right? And realized this frequency matched the mathematical secrets of the universe.
And once again, history tells a much more practical story. Verdi's motivation was entirely about human anatomy, not cosmic alchemy.
Okay, break that down.
In the late 19th century, theaters were engaging in a practice called pitch inflation. They kept pushing the tuning higher and higher, creeping up past 450 hertz.
Whoa, because a higher pitch has more tension. It sounds brighter, louder, and cuts through a crowded, noisy theater much better.
Exactly. It commands absolute attention. But that added tension was severely straining the vocal cords of the opera singers. Yeah, you had vocalists blowing out their voices trying to hit these artificially inflated high notes. So Verdi was simply concerned about vocal health and workplace safety.
Wow.
In an 1884 letter, he formally requested that orchestras tune down to 432 hertz because it was slightly lower, which protected his singers' throats.
Makes total sense.
And crucially, because the number 432 was numerically easy for government acoustic commissions to calculate.
It's so wild how a highly practical request to save a soprano's vocal cords essentially birthed a modern mystical movement.
It really did.
Because the lore around 432 hertz doesn't stop with Verdi. The internet is totally flooded with these massive archaeological claims.
Are the pyramids?
Right. You'll see viral posts stating the Great Pyramid of Giza was built to resonate at 432 hertz because the base of the pyramid is 432 units long.
Yeah.
Or that ancient Tibetan healing bowls were universally tuned to 432 hertz by enlightened monks.
Which is where we really have to look at how we fundamentally measure reality, because
Yeah.
the physics completely dismantle these esoteric claims.
Huh.
First of all, the pyramid's base is actually measured at 440 royal cubits, not 432.
So the numbers are just wrong.
But more importantly, ancient civilizations had absolutely no concept of measuring hertz.
Because hertz is a very specific modern metric. Like it literally just means cycles per second.
Precisely. To measure cycles per second, you need a highly standardized, globally agreed upon measurement of what a second even is.
Oh, right.
And you need complex equipment like oscilloscopes to track the waveform. The unit of hertz wasn't even invented or named until the 1930s.
Wow, so the ancients couldn't have even known what it was.
Right. And as for the archaeological record on Tibetan bowls, when acoustic researchers actually measure surviving historical instruments, the tuning fluctuates wildly, anywhere from 370 hertz to 460 hertz, depending on the region and the craftsman.
That's a huge range.
A strict 432 hertz ancient standard simply never existed.
And this brings us to what might be the most important part of untangling this myth. The fundamental math error that people make when they talk about these ancient structures.
It's a big one.
Yeah. They are mixing up wavelength with frequency. Let's really break this down. Frequency is a measure of time. Again, how many cycles happen in one single second?
Yes.
But wavelengths is a measure of physical distance.
It's literally the difference between a stopwatch and a tape measure.
Oh, I love that analogy.
Think of it like this. Frequency is how many times a drummer hits a snare drum in one single second. Wavelength is the actual physical distance that the sound travels across the room between each of those hits.
Right.
You cannot measure the drummer's tempo using a tape measure. They are entirely different dimensions of physics.
Exactly. So when a viral video claims as a stone pyramid houses an ancient knowledge of 432 hertz because a wall is 432 meters long, they're basically using a tape measure to describe a stopwatch.
Which doesn't work.
The math is completely broken.
Yeah.
Because in reality, at standard room temperature, a 432 hertz sound wave actually has a physical wavelength of about 79.6 centimeters.
You're right.
It doesn't match the dimensions of these ancient monuments at all.
And we see this exact same mathematical mismatch with the naturalistic claims too.
Oh, right. Like the Earth's frequency.
Yes. People love to say 432 hertz aligns mathematically with the Earth's electromagnetic heartbeat, the Schumann resonance, or that it's a direct harmonic of the human resting heart rate at 72 beats per minute.
Both of those things are constantly changing.
Exactly.
The Schumann resonance isn't a fixed 8 hertz. It fluctuates dynamically around 7.83 hertz depending on like the ionosphere and solar radiation. It's a shifting environmental variable.
And human heart rates.
Right.
Right.
Your heart rate varies constantly based on your age, your fitness, if you just walked up a flight of stairs, or even what you had for breakfast.
Right. Tying a static universal acoustic standard to constantly shifting planetary and biological variables is a fundamentally flawed premise.
Okay, so we've debunked the ancient history.
Yep.
We've proven the pyramids have nothing to do with it. We've shown the math is comparing stopwatches to tape measures.
It is.
But here's the massive pivot. If all these myths are totally false, why do so many listeners swear that putting on a 432 hertz track makes them feel significantly calmer?
Because our logical brains and our endocrine systems process sound entirely differently.
Right.
And this is where the hard clinical science steps in and reveals something really incredible.
Let's talk about the endocrine surprise, because there is a profound 2020 clinical study involving 42 patients who are undergoing one of the most universally stressful experiences imaginable.
Oh, dental surgery.
Surgical dental extractions.
The researchers placed these patients into a highly stressful environment. You know, the smell of the clinic, sound of the drill, the anticipation of pain.
It's just awful.
And they randomized the patients into 3 groups. One group listened to music tuned to 432 hertz, one listened to music tuned to 440 hertz, and a control group had no music at all.
Sure.
They tracked perceived anxiety, what the patients consciously reported feeling, and then they tracked an objective biological marker, which was salivary cortisol.
Cortisol being the primary stress hormone of the endocrine system. It's the chemical that triggers your fight or flight response.
Exactly. And the divergence between the mind and the body was fascinating.
What happened?
Consciously, the patients reported feeling less anxiety with both 440 hertz and 432 hertz compared to the control group.
Which makes sense. Music is a fantastic distraction for the conscious brain.
Yeah.
It gives your mind something to focus on besides the dental tools.
True. But the salivary cortisol, the involuntary chemical stress response, told a vastly different story.
How different?
Well, the control patients who had no music had very high cortisol levels, around 1.59 micrograms per deciliter.
Okay.
The 440 hertz group saw a decent reduction, dropping to 1.06.
Not bad.
But the 432 hertz group, their cortisol levels didn't just drop, they plummeted down to 0.49.
Whoa.
Less than a third of the control group's levels.
Wait, I have to push back here. Couldn't that massive cortisol drop just be a genre issue? Like, if the 432 hertz group was listening to ambient spa music and the 440 group was listening to high-energy pop, obviously the spa music wins.
And that is the genius of the study design. They used the exact same musical tracks for both groups.
Right.
Identical. The tempo, the melody, the instruments, identical. The only variable that was altered was shifting the fundamental tuning down by 8 hertz.
That is wild.
While the conscious mind was distracted by any music, the deep physiological stress response showed a profound involuntary relaxation exclusively to 432 hertz.
A tiny 8 hertz shift triggered a massive chemical change. Why? How does the body even detect that?
It comes down to something called acoustic coherence. Think of a sound wave like a smoothly paved road.
Okay.
When audio is heavily processed or tuned to certain high-tension frequencies, that road can start to develop tiny potholes as it travels through a physical space.
Got it.
The wave gets slightly jagged, slightly out of phase. Engineers call this temporal desynchronization.
So the sound wave is getting messy before it even reaches your ear.
Yes. And your brain has to act like a shock absorber. It has to constantly work to smooth out that audio data before your auditory cortex can actually understand it as music.
Oh, interesting.
That requires microscopic amounts of continuous energy, which leads to cognitive fatigue. But 432 Hz naturally resists this desynchronization. The wave stays remarkably smooth and coherent.
Which means your brain doesn't have to work nearly as hard to decode the sound. It literally signals physical safety to your nervous system because the processing strain is completely removed.
Exactly. And this isn't just wellness community theory anymore. This specific resilience to distortion is so measurable that it birthed the Acoustic Coherence Index.
Wait, what's that?
Global tech engineers are currently integrating this index into the IEP OwnPrite IC 57.16 audio coding standard.
The official IE standard.
Yes. They are literally designing the next generation of audio compression based on how the human nervous system processes this specific acoustic smoothness.
That is massive validation from the engineering world.
It really is.
And the vital signs back it up across the board, right? Look at a 2019 double-blind crossover study. It showed 432 Hz produced significantly greater reductions in resting heart rate compared to 440.
Or the 2023 empirical study on blood pressure. They played identical jazz and classical tracks. The tracks tuned to 432 Hz significantly lowered systolic blood pressure.
And the 440.
When they played the exact same tracks tuned to 440 Hz, it entirely failed to trigger that physiological drop.
Amazing. And beyond the raw data, there's the human element. There's a 2022 pilot study that looked at emergency room nurses working during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Oh man, an incredibly traumatic, high-stress environment.
Definitely. And while both frequencies help reduce their baseline stress, the nurses consistently describe their physical experience with 432 Hz as noticeably more calming and restorative.
So if we pull all of this together, the logistical history of 440, the debunked ancient math, and the very real clinical data showing lowered cortisol and blood pressure, how do we put this into a useful context? How should you, listening right now, actually use this information the next time you open a playlist?
Well, let's build what we can call the ultimate comparison matrix.
Yeah.
Because it's crucial to understand that neither frequency is actually bad.
Exactly.
They just serve completely different functions for your brain.
Yeah.
Let's start with 440 Hz. This is the crisp standard. Perceptually, it is brighter, sharper, and highly energetic.
Its psychoacoustic function is that it commands attention. It is specifically designed to cut right through environmental noise.
Which makes it absolutely perfect for pop music, EDM, modern orchestral arrangements, driving rock, and active listening.
Yeah, driving, working out.
Right. If you are working out or driving, or 440 Hz creates a baseline cognitive load that keeps you engaged. And practically, it remains a brilliant logistical standard.
So true. But on the other side of the matrix, we have 432 Hz, the warm resonance.
Like that name.
Perceptually, it doesn't have that sharp, piercing attack on the leading edge of the note. It is softer, deeper, rounder.
Its psychoacoustic effect is enveloping and grounding. Because it actively reduces auditory fatigue, its best use cases are highly specific.
Right.
You want this for sound baths, meditation, ambient acoustic sessions, and restorative therapy. It is a biological tool for actively lowering your cortisol and signaling safety to your nervous system.
That is the perfect synthesis. 440 Hz is a logistical standard. It is not a biological threat.
Exactly.
And 432 Hz is a therapeutic tool. It is not a cosmic law. The specific number matters far less than the esoteric internet myths suggest, but the actual acoustic warmth matters far more than modernization wants to admit.
And I think there is something really beautiful in acknowledging that context, because even though 440 Hz was chosen by engineers in the 1930s just to avoid doing math with a prime number,
just to make their lives easier.
Right, music tuned to 440 Hz has still managed to move billions of people to tears, to intense joy, to profound realization.
Absolutely.
The real magic of sound isn't found in a mystical number carved into a pyramid. It is found in the intention of the creator and the emotional resonance of the listener.
It's the human element that ultimately brings the frequency to life. But it is undeniable that our biology has a subtle, verifiable chemical preference for warmth.
To realize that your body genuinely has an endocrine preference for acoustic warmth, that it physically relaxes when a sound wave is just a little bit smoother, that completely changes how you can think about curating your own sonic environment.
It certainly does. And it leaves us with a final, somewhat provocative thought to consider.
Oh, what's that?
If our nervous system and our actual stress hormones react so dramatically to a nearly imperceptible 8 hertz shift in the music we consciously choose to listen to, what other invisible, everyday environmental frequencies are silently shaping our stress levels right now without us even realizing it?
Wow. Now that is something to really mull over the next time you put your headphones on and step out into the world. Until next time, we wish you happy, healthy, and highly intentional listening. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and we'll see you on the next deep dive.